Now the interior of the vehicle is quite nice, especially in this price point range. My favorite is certainly the steering wheel. It's a small diameter steering wheel. Of course, you have your 2 and 10 o'clock notches. It's quite thick, but also you can control everything from the steering wheel. So not only your radio controls, your cruise control, but if you want to send and receive text messages, this controls or connects directly to Siri once you link up your iPhone. And of course, this is where you would see your text messages. Also, your rear view camera, when you put the car in reverse, this is where it pops up. All the buttons feel very, very nicely made. Doesn't feel cheap whatsoever. They have a nice tactileness, if that's a word, to it. Even the HVAC controls feel very, very nicely made. And then regarding the cubby space, you have your traditional cigarette power outlet right there. Of course, cubby holes, your cup holders, and there you go, a USB down there with a auxiliary. So right here is your auxiliary. So that's a cool plus. Of course, your glove box. So again, certainly for the price point, really nice stuff. Now regarding some other options, especially on, in this case, the SV, you have Eco, which pops up here. You also have a sport mode, which is interesting since it only has like 125 horsepower, but it just feels a little bit different when you hit the throttle, and you could turn off traction control if you really wanted to. So how does the vehicle drive? It drives quite nicely like most modern vehicles. Surprisingly enough, it doesn't handle too bad as well. What I mean by surprisingly is that this vehicle has a torsion beam rear suspension as opposed to an independent rear suspension. And to give you an analogy what that means, if you're going through a turn at 40 miles an hour, for example, and you have some unevenness in the road, with an independent rear suspension, your tire patch is glued to the road a lot better than a torsion beam suspension. So what happens with the torsion beam system is your steering wheel would rock back and forth very, very subtle. It's nothing drastic by any means, but very, very subtle. You get that sense that you're not connected to the road as you once were. But again, you're talking about a vehicle that starts a touch under $19,000, brand new. So you can't expect the most sophisticated parts and componentry all the time. Even with the engine, it's a little raspy. It's not very refined. If you're familiar with Honda VTECs, for example, which is also a 4-cylinder, but when you get in the higher end, higher RPM range, the VTECs sound really nice, and you don't get that here. But again, with the price point, it's perfectly fine. It really is. You get 37 miles per gallon on the highway, 29 city. It's a Cvt transmission, so it's not automatic. So with a CVT, you don't get that changing gear in the RPM. You don't feel it in a sense. With an automatic, as you know, you go up to 3 grand, let's say, then it shifts into second gear. RPM goes up, shifts into third gear. With the CVT, you can put your foot into it and it kind of just goes. Some people like them, some people don't, but to be perfectly honest, with the music on and your friends in the car, you're not going to care. I mean, that's just the straight, honest answer. You do get great visibility. It's quiet. It's comfortable. It's spacious enough. Here's the door guard on the passenger side. I'm 5'8", not that large, but in terms of the capability, you'd have plenty of room. The trunk is really big. You got airbags in the front, the side, and the roof, so they're everywhere. ABS. You got traction control. I really like the fact that with a lot of modern vehicles, you can hook this up. If you have an iPhone, for example, you can hook it up directly to Siri, and you can send text messages. There's a little button on the steering wheel that you press it. You mention the name that you want to send a text message to, and you read out what you want to say. And when you receive a text message, it comes up on your 5-inch screen right here. So it's really nice, especially you figure that in this price range, your younger generation will be buying this vehicle. And let's all face it, they love their gadgets. And the fact that their hands are on the steering wheel instead of their phone, they're paying attention to the road, and they can still do their text messaging. That's a really, I think it's a nice safety feature for sure. It really is. And it's really, a car like this it's a commuting car. What I mean by that is it's not a vehicle you fall in love with, right? I mean, you don't fall in love with the looks. You don't fall in love with the way it drives. It drives nicely, don't get me wrong, but it's not something that has a soul and it just gets you very excited to drive in a sense. And that's why these some vehicles are really perfect for this type of commuting, because you don't care. It would bother you if you get a scratch here and there, but it doesn't ruin your day. For example, if you're going out to dinner and someone parks too closely to the car that you love, you won't enjoy dinner. You're thinking about your car the entire time. You can't enjoy your dinner and your date, so on and so forth. With a vehicle like this, it's okay, whatever. You know, that's the way I see these vehicles. Because let's face it, your car's going to get dinged up. You're going to get road chips. You're going to go to Home Depot and you're going to find a scratch. You're going to go to your local Wegmans or wherever, or Walmart, and the car's going to get beat up here and there. And it happens. What are you going to do? That's just the way it is. But a car like this, it doesn't ruin your day, and that's really a fantastic price point. And then very lastly, with these modern vehicles, they're just built so well. And what I mean by that is, for example, the transmission fluid is lifetime. Unless you're towing or you live in a really extremely dusty condition, you don't have to change the transmission fluid. Same with the coolant. On other vehicles, you don't have to change the differential fluid. So these are things that make a difference in the long run when it comes to you shelling out money to maintain the vehicle. And I think for the money, you really do get a lot. And that's the goal here for our subscribers, just to say thank you. Here's a car review once a month. We'll continue with the auto repair, of course, and also we'll continue with the restoration of the 240Z. So at least you have different components or things you can watch if you're interested in that sort of thing. So thank you for watching. I hope this gives you a pretty good idea what you can expect here. Any questions, comments, please leave it below, and we'll see you next time.